So today's message is entitled Pursuit of God's Desire. And this is such an important topic because a lot of times people don't know what God desires. A lot of times it's really a lot of noise. We hear a lot of noise when it comes to politics. We hear a lot of noise when it comes to social media. We hear a lot of noise when it comes to just meeting up with people. What side are you on? Are you on this side or that side, conservative, liberal? Are you Christian or not Christian? Are you atheist? Are you this? And everything becomes take a side. And we see the same thing throughout history, from the very beginning, even here in today's passage that we read, where the Pharisees and the Sadducees and the teachers of the law, they are so jealous of Jesus. They're trying to quiz him. They're trying to test him. They're trying to make him say something that he shouldn't say so that they could get the crowd on their side again. Look, he's not on our side. We got him. They're trying to play that same game. And here in today's passage, we see that too. Like, Jesus, then what is the greatest commandment? But we see Jesus answer very wisely. The first is to love God. And the second, just simply put, to love God and to love people. And as we look at today's intro, these two questions are pretty much, we already answered it, but what is the purpose of all the commandments and the law? We live in such a noisy world, but what is God's desire for us to focus on at the end of the day, right? And it comes down to this. Yes, it is the love of God, love for God and love for people, but it starts with community, where we need to commune with God, and then we can have community with others. And this is something that's missing from a lot of people's lives. Either they forget to do the one or both, where people can have community with God, but then they don't have community with people. Or the other way around. They might not have community with God, but they would have community with people. But we need both in order to be an answer, to find answers for this world that is around us. Growing up, I struggled a lot trying to figure out, what is this all about? What am I pursuing? What do I need? And one of the things that I tried out was being an EMT. So for about a year, I was a volunteer EMT at the Kensington Fire Station. That's near my parents' house, or now Anna and Hai's house. And the Kensington Station is pretty well known apparently in Montgomery County. And Montgomery County is apparently known throughout the whole United States of America. I didn't know, for volunteer firefighting and also EMT. Their program is top notch. So I got to be a part of that, got to enjoy free pizza and pasta for the trainings, and it was great. I don't know if they still do it that way. I don't think so, but definitely enjoyed it when I was there and learned a lot of things. And the thing that I was trying to run away from was actually just the politics or just the noise that came from both the world around me and also within the church. And in joining, I found a nice community within the fire department and got to enjoy a lot of people's company, even though we might not agree on a lot of subjects, even though we're very different from different cultures. And I thought I ran away from politics and ran away from all the like dead religion. But my joy and my comfort was very short-lived because we had a department meeting, and that's where everything kind of blew up. There was a lot of problems that took place within the fire department, and people trying to get my vote for something. He said, make sure you vote for this and that, and if you're on this side, make sure. And I was like, oh my gosh, it's everywhere. This thing is everywhere. I can't escape from it. And I discovered something through those moments where, this is a people problem. This is a humanity problem. This is not a church problem or a community problem alone or a Maryland problem, but this is a problem everywhere. It doesn't matter if you're in America or Korea or any place in the world. People get stuck in this type of wrong mindset. But what God truly wants from us here today is community with Him first, and then community with the people that are around us. Because true community begins with God. Because it is the gospel that makes way for us to actually have community. Because this is what happens. If it's not the gospel, right, this path towards having a relationship with God through Jesus Christ, then what ends up happening is it's a dead religion. We see the Pharisees and the Sadducees, they're trying to play that political game. They're trying to play these mind games with Jesus, but the gospel that they're trying to, present before the people is not a gospel that brings life to people. What are they trying to do? They're trying to kill. They're trying to kill Jesus. They're trying to get rid of Him. That is not the gospel, but it is dead religion. And it leads to death to those who receive it. If it's not the gospel, then it is a life chasing after idols. We have to understand that we are spiritual beings. An idol doesn't necessarily have to be a statue of something. It can be a thought. It can be an ideology. It can be a product. It can be even people. It's anything that we make higher than God. It's taking a good thing and making it into an ultimate thing. This is idolatry. But the thing with idolatry is it fails us because our hearts are made to house the living God in our soul, in our heart. But we keep on filling it with things that can't quite meet the bill. So what ends up happening is disappointment after disappointment. Once one idol fails us, then we jump to the next idol. And if that idol fails us, then we try to look for another idol. But the problem is, as we age and as we grow older, we don't have the same zeal to find another idol. And we lose hope. And when we lose hope, then it just kind of goes down the drain real quick, where we don't have a purpose anymore. This is the cycle that Jesus Christ came to break so that we don't remain in it. Because this type of living leads to the following. If not the gospel, then it is following the pattern of spiritual problems, right? Chasing after idol, which leads to mental problems because we can't resolve a lot of the things, or we don't see an answer, we don't see a future, so we get stressed out. We get overwhelmed by life. There's no peace in our hearts. This is the biggest mental problem today, is no peace. There is no peace, even though we have everything we need. Compared to any place else in the world, America is pretty top-notch, even though we have America has its own problems. But compared to other nations, it's pretty good. And that's not to mean we shouldn't resolve any problems here, but we have it really well. And these mental problems then lead to physical problems. Number one cause of health issues is stress. It's not necessarily your eating habits. Yes, it plays a big role, but a lot of times that eating problem happens due to stress as well. So it's a compounding problem. But this also leads to physical problems as in our relationships as well. The people that are in this physical world, when we get stressed at work, sometimes we blow up at our family, or we blow up on our friends, or vice versa. If we have family problems, then we blow up at our coworkers, or our boss, or those who are working for us, it's not a good pattern to live. If it's not the gospel, then it's a cycle of scars, and it continues. It doesn't just end with our lives, but it goes to the next generation after us. Whether it is our own children or whether it is the class that's right behind you, right, in school, or the people coming into your workplace as interns. We leave behind something. And that's why true community starts with the gospel. It starts with Jesus Christ. And it's in that relationship we're able to love. It's in that relationship that we're able to, in that love, find our healing, find our own healing in Jesus Christ, so that we can become available to actually help others. I know for many of us, we might be very busy. And then you're like, I don't have time to help people right now because my stack of things to do is so high. How can I help? Or just, what I have nothing to offer. I'm pretty spent. I'm running on fumes. And this is where relationship with Christ is so vital, because you don't have it. You don't have it in you to pour into anybody. And that catches up. There's this relational debt that we accrue, that the more we start to ignore the important parts of our lives, over time it damages those relationships. So how can we have a strength that we don't have? And it starts with community with God. And we're going to go into that in our third point a little bit more, but it's in this community and relationship with God that we're able to love people, which leads to our second point. Reaching the world begins with community. So what is community, right? In order for us to even think of world evangelism, right, we need to look at the people that are actually around us, people that we're connected to, people that we talk with at work, at home, when we go to the grocery store, running errands, where have you. And when we look at community, what is the community that Jesus actually desires? Because the goal of Christianity isn't exclusivity. Exclusivity. That's what the religious leaders here in Israel pursued. This is for the chosen people only. This is for those who are in, not you. And that's what we see the Pharisees do. But what do we see Jesus do? He reached out to those who are rejected by these religious leaders. And this is the thing. Inclusivity on the opposite side does not mean that there are no standards. Our standard is the gospel. And this gospel is for everyone to receive. But that doesn't mean, I can do whatever I want and then, Jesus will love me, right? Yes, he will love you, but you're not looking for a relationship with him, if that's your mentality. Because if you love somebody, you don't just go like, I'm going to cheat on you so many times and then I'm going to come back to you and you'll say you'll love me, right? It's like red flag, warning, right? That's not a healthy relationship. We're not in this relationship to take advantage of grace. Yes, there's an aspect to that where we should take advantage of grace when it is here, while we're alive here on this earth. But we're building towards a relationship with God. And we have to see this aspect as well, that the world's standards are worse in many ways. I mean, you look at Amber Heard and Johnny Depp. It is the craziest thing I've ever seen in my life. Like, why do people care so much? The world standard is crazy because if you cross the world wrong, they just cancel you. And you just need to cross them wrong once, and you're forever branded, right? Forever branded with a scarlet letter. Isn't that crazy? But so many people chase after the world. So what's going on here? People have a very skewed picture of reality, that somehow the world is so much better and their standards are so much better. But it's not really the case. And what we're in pursuit of is, what is the real and true gospel? But the problem is, we assume what the gospel is. We assume what it's supposed to look like the religious leaders here assumed what it should look like. And it didn't include Jesus to them. Is that really the gospel then? Isn't that crazy? And it's amazing how we start to align our spiritual lives closer to the Pharisees and the Sadducees more than Jesus Christ. And this is something that we really need to tread wisely, that we know what God actually desires. That He's calling for us to be a witness to all people, to include all people. But like I said, inclusivity doesn't mean there are no standards. Our standard is always the gospel, that Jesus, He is the Christ, that He made the way for us where there was no way, by being the prophet, forgive our sins by being the priest, and being the one who has destroyed the work of Satan as the King of Kings, Lord of Lords. And this is the good news that we're sharing with people that are spiritually stuck. People stuck in spiritual problems, chasing after one idol after another, never being satisfied, always anxious, because there is no future in dead religion or idolatrous living. So what we're doing here today is we're creating a platform for the gospel. And that's what the Church of Love needs to be, a platform, so that people can hear the good news. But we need to be established in this community with God first in order for that to take place. So what is God's desire? What is the point, right? Verse 40, it says, on these two commandments depend all the law and the prophets. These two commandments cover the 10 commandments, where the 10 commandments can be split into those two categories: love for God, love for people. The first 5, 6, and the latter half is love for people. The do not murder, do not covet, all those do nots cover people. And that's what it comes down to, loving God, loving people. But this is the thing that I want to get to, that I mentioned earlier, that I wanted to talk to you about. Why is it so difficult? Why is it so hard, right? Why is community and loving people, why is it so difficult, and why is it so complicated at times? And these are 3 things that I want us to really think about when reflecting on our own lives. First is that we carry so many scars on our own, where we try to solve things on our own. Trying to solve your past on your own, trying to solve what you're frustrated on your own, trying to solve everything. You're trying to solve everything. You're trying to be Superman or Superwoman, trying to be the answer for yourself. There's no room for help. So we don't seek help. We just try to be kind of army of one, right? And then on top of that, we assume, right? We assume that God's way might be too, it might not be fun, and I might have to give up too much. We assume, so we don't seek God's desire. because we think God's desire is going to mess up my flow or mess up my vibe. But this is how Satan so many times deceives people. And we end up following those wrong patterns that we saw in the first point, where we chase after things that have nothing to do with the gospel. And we fall into spiritual problems, mental problems, and physical problems. We face judgment, and then we also see our next generation struggle the same struggles that we struggled. And it's just history repeated over and over again, like a broken record. We need to break these wrong cycles in our family line. We need to find new life. Conclusion is this here today. How can we overcome ourselves, the world, and Satan? Pretty big question, right? And it's an answer that I've already discussed, but it's community with God, with Christ. And it's done through worship. Our Sunday worship, that's why Sunday worship is so important. And I'm glad everyone is able to join us here today and those online as well. Our Sunday worship is so important, but as important is our personal worship throughout the week, where it's not the same thing as our Sunday worship. Sunday worship should not look like how you worship on Monday, right? Because that'll cause some problems at work, I bet. But personal worship can be as simple as just having a moment to pray, maybe a minute or so, to pray before you start the day. But we can't look at it as I'm serving God, or it's a service to God, that's why I'm a Christian, so I have to do it. Times of worship is when you are inviting Christ into your field, Christ into your family, Christ into wherever you happen to be, in your workplace. We're inviting Christ in, and He is light, and He shines in the darkness. When you are lost at work, when you are lost at home, when you are lost anywhere, worship. And see the wisdom and understanding that God gives you. It's through the word that we receive through our Sunday message, but it's also our praises, which leads to prayer, which then leads to real answers, where evangelism is just merely sharing the good news that you received by holding on to the good news of Jesus Christ. And this leads to 24 hours. I don't mean we're 24 hours like reading or 24 hours praying or 24 hours praising, but we have to understand that God is available 24 hours, 7 days a week. He's not only available now, right? Because we're at church. God is available when you're stressed. God is available when you are not in the mood. God is available. And He's waiting to give you an answer in the midst of the things that we struggle with. And do not be deceived by Satan's traps. Because Satan doesn't want you to have community with anybody. And if you do have a community, he wants it to be as superficial as possible, as meaningless as possible. Yes, you're around a lot of people, and it feels like there's a community, but if it's only superficial, it's not so meaningful. Satan wants us to have he doesn't want us to have a relationship with God, but if you do, he wants you to have a very superficial relationship with God. And with people, yeah. If you do have a deep relationship, he wants you to, flock together with other people that have the same problem as you do, right? So it just kind of exacerbates the problem. And this is where I started to find answers for my own life, trying to find what is it I'm living for. Because I couldn't find it at the fire department. I couldn't find it at that time at the church. But I found it through asking real questions to God and honestly praying, being genuine with Him. You know, what is it that you're calling me to? Because I don't see it right now. Help me to understand what your will for me is. And then I started to see what the gospel was really about. It wasn't about politics. It wasn't about, am I on this side or that side? It was really about life in Jesus Christ. Coming out of some of the wrong thinkings that I was stuck in. Coming out of some of the scars that I've been holding on to, trying to fix by myself, or trying to resolve, thinking that maybe I'm not good enough yet to overcome these things. But when I graduate, then God will love me. No. It was realizing that God already loved me. And it's in that love that I can receive healing and love those who are around me as well. So as we hold on to today's word, let's really pursue God's desires, because this is what we need, but this is what our field needs. Because the world is looking it looks very fake, very superficial, when there's so many people that are in need of help. And we need this gospel and know it very well so that we know how to relay it to our field. We can't just hold on to a very vague gospel, but we need to see why Jesus, so that we can give that answer to those who are around us.